Have you ever walked away from a conversation with your ex feeling completely drained, confused, or even doubting your own memory of what just happened? Maybe every time you talk to your ex, you feel like it's a trap, or every decision you need to make about your kids feels like a power struggle. If you've ever thought, is it just me, or is my co-parent maybe a narcissist? Then you're in the right place, and this is the episode for you. Today, we're going to be looking at ways to recognize early warning signs that you're dealing with a narcissistic type co-parent, not just a difficult one, and what you can actually do about it. And today, we're being joined by Mia, lawyer and founder of Grey Rock Consulting, someone who understands very well what it's like to deal with controlling, narcissistic, high-conflict personalities. She's also the first person in Australia to be certified by Rebecca Zung as Master High Conflict Negotiation Coach. And now she uses that powerful combination of all her experiences and training to help others navigate this complex personality when going through co-parenting and other situations. So just a reminder before we carry on that there is potentially discussions of emotional abuse, manipulation, and family violence. If you are triggered by that, please call 13 11 14 Lifeline. And if you're find out you're experiencing family violence, you can call 1-800-RESPECT to be connected to the right people to help you. And another reminder, Mum is not your lawyer, me is not your lawyer, I am not a lawyer, and everything we talk about today is just a general discussion. Please get your own legal advice as each situation is different. Welcome, Mia.
Thank you so much. That was quite the intro.
Yes, but you are quite an amazing person, and welcome, Mum, of course.
Hello, Laura. Hi, Mia. Hello, everyone.
And we're so happy to have you back on, Mia. We've had some really good episodes with you about mediation and manipulation, all sorts of episodes. I'm going to put a link to all of them in the show notes if anyone wants to listen to those as well, because Mia has some powerful things to say that hit you in the face and can really change your attitude towards what's happening. So let's get into it. To start with though, Mia, you must get this question a lot. Is my co-parent a narcissist?
I do. Actually, I get a lot of, they are a narcissist from the get-go. So yes, I absolutely hear it a lot. And do you know what I heard the other day, which I thought was and it was in the context of, is the word overused? And too many people say when people really are narcissists and things like that. And it was the incredible Dr. Ramani. And she said, do you know what? If I arrive at your doorstep with an egg in my hand and say it's a cake, you're going to look at me and say, that is not a cake. And she was describing how we need a word for things. So if I bring a cake to your door, each time I do it, I'm not going to say, here I have a combination of flour, eggs, butter, sugar. It's a cake. It is the word that describes what is in my hand, the product that I have here. And I thought it was such a great way to put it, because yes, we are hearing the word a lot. Is it being used incorrectly? Sure, of course it is. But it is really important to have this word to string together a pattern of the experiences that people are having, so that time we talk, I don't say, so Laura, I've experienced bullying, threats, intimidation, entitlement. We need the word. So yes, a lot, but I think with education, I think changes to family law, acts and things like that, it is becoming more and more prevalent. Yes.
Yeah. And I do think as well that no one's doing videos or podcasts or TikToks or blog posts on how great their co-parenting is or how great their ex is. We're hearing and you're seeing in the courts the bad ones, the bad breakups, the bad dramas, the problems. Yes. And that usually do have those kind of traits. So even if your ex isn't psychologically diagnosed as a narcissist, if you're recognizing some of these things we're going to be talking about, then you can still use these strategies. And Mum, just a disclaimer for you, when it comes to court and court documents, just a reminder to everyone is what kind of things do people need to be mindful if they use the word narcissist in court documents? And
yes, it's probably not a brilliant word to use unless their psychologist or psychiatrist has diagnosed them with that. But you can talk about those behaviours as if like kind of the reverse of what Mia says. Don't show the judge the cake. Show the judge each of the ingredients and let him put them all together.
Okay. I like this. Okay. So for people who are going through it, they can go, I'm dealing with a cake. But when you go to court, just give the judge the ingredients list and let the judge figure out you're going with the cake.
I really like that metaphor. I heard too, which Lynn, you probably come across as well. People who have gotten psychological support. And in that process, the psychologist said, yes, your ex is absolutely a narcissist, which they can't do. But that person then gets into the system and says, my psychologist said, that's also.
I think that there's a reason in our personality prism, we talk about manipulative and controlling people. And a lot of those traits would cross into the narcissist field. And the reason people are saying narcissist is because they're looking at these TikToks, Laura, and they're looking at the research and they're going, absolutely, I can relate to that. This is what's happening to me. Yeah, the idea of having the word.
Hello, I'm Laura Furiosi, divorced mother of 3, and I'm here with my mother, Lynette Galvin, with 35 years' experience in family law. You're listening to the Divorce Course podcast. Through our candid discussions, we hope to help you through your divorce or de facto separation. We will be answering the most commonly asked questions and covering the stages and steps that you will face on your way to freedom.
Okay. All right. So then let's get into it. What are some of the warning signs, Mia? What can people see? Because they go, did I actually say that? Or did that actually happen? What are some of the warning signs for people who are listening, who are just starting with separation, that maybe they are dealing with this kind of personality type?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because at the end of the day, they do not come into your life or exit your life either with a big sign on their head that says, I am the vampire of your soul and I'm going to destroy you. And it would be a lot easier if they did, because we would... Why? A lot of them are covert in this. They are the good old wolf in sheep's clothing. So when you start to see these behaviors, I think the initial reaction, apart from all the obvious around shock and surprise and all of that, is you don't quite believe it. You minimize it or you justify it or something like that because it's not the person you know. But what you will start to see is entitlement, threats. If you do this, I'm taking the kids. You'll start to see those and hear those sorts of things. I think one of the key behaviors, the most common across the board, is the shifting of blame. You will start to see that nothing you can do is right. Nothing that they do. You cannot say, do you know what? I carried myself out there like a jerk. And I was just really angry because my world's turned upside down and I let my emotions get the better. Never. It's the most common one I hear about the most is just, this is you. Your fault. The reason the kids have problems is you. The reason this marriage's falling apart is you. It's one of the.
So if your ex can't self-reflect and take some of the blame or give an apology, that's a sign, right?
I think it is a major one. You'll start, I guess, the difference between how do you spot them when you're dating and how do you spot them when you're leaving a relationship. When you're leaving a relationship, the behaviors will come on thickest because their world, that if you can think about it, that they have created this external facade and that must be maintained at all costs. And if you have been in a relationship with them and had children or even if you don't, you are a huge risk because you see through it. And that is their world collapsing because on the inside, I think a lot of people think they're just full of themselves and love themselves. It's the opposite. They're so deeply insecure. There's so much shame and so many awful things going on beneath the surface that they don't want anyone else to see that. So if you are leaving a relationship, you will see often very quickly that mask come down and the things that they couldn't have cared less about before, like time with the kids, becomes their number one. Money, the house, all the material things are critically important to them. They will speak ill of you. So you will start to hear friends going, oh, but he said or she said. And you're like, that taking of sides, shifting of blame, entitlement. There's a whole list of horrible things that you will start to encounter.
And is that true that they'll only see it after they break up? Or will it have been
I think, and what I see with clients is when they look back, when you reflect back, there were always warning signs, things where you're like, your instinct was like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Or, oh, I don't like that. But we overlook them. We justify them. He had a horrible upbringing or she just lost her job or whatever it might be. And we find a way because what they do, I get goosebumps trying. When you meet, they are very quick, narcissists proper, very quick at figuring out what matters to you and things like that. And what they're actually doing when someone says to me, oh, he's just not the person I met. that person never actually existed. And what they do is they mirror back to you all the things you want to hear. It's when you really think about it, you're like, this is horrific. So when you say, this is not the person I know, that person never existed. And what you're seeing is the real person. But there will be absolutely events, words, things that happen along the way where when you look back, you go, oh, okay, not going to be, they might be smaller, they might not be as overt or as explosive. But then, so it's not like this person was wonderful for a 15-year relationship and then you decided to leave and they just switched into this terrible person.
And the other thing too, for people who are coming out of this sort of relationship, in a way, because you've been smoothing over these, what in retrospect look like totally unacceptable behaviours, but you've overlooked them because you've got the kids, the house, etc., etc. You've not told your family members either. And your ex continues to be really good and nice to your family. So they still see the facade. And the most awful thing that I find they do is they get to your family first. Before you can tell your family the marriage is over, they've poisoned the well. And they do it with the children. I see all the time. We see it, don't we, Laura? We agreed, we'd tell the kids together, but he went in and told them straight away by himself.
Before we go on, I think where Mia said about looking back, the retrospect is when you realize, oh, wait, things weren't exactly what I thought, or I didn't look at it properly. We just did an episode with Krasi called The Glow Up After Divorce, How to Recover After Abuse. And one of the steps in that recovery process is to, unfortunately for people, look back and really try and she said, you've got to name it to tame it and to really get your head around what happened back then, what you went through in order to be able to recover. So I guess for a lot of people who might be starting to think, wait, there's something not quite right about my ex, this co-parent thing is getting out of control. You can go and listen to that episode if you want to give you some support there. But I think looking back and really having another think and seeing those behaviors maybe in a different light may help you understand who you're dealing with a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful advice. And I think there's no one size fits all in terms of how people feel. More often than not, that whatever you want to call it, your gut, your instinct, your intuition, your inner gets louder and louder in these relationships. And that's what ultimately is where people go, I just can't anymore. And some people might get out and just jump into something else because they just don't want to look at any of those things. Some people are like, I have to figure out how this all happened and go through the process. Whichever path you go down, ultimately, one of the kindest things you can do for yourself is do that work around what did I experience? How can I, going forward, ensure or do the best that I can to ensure that I don't end up in something like that again? One of the best things you can do for yourself, that's self-reflection and really understanding, because if you don't, I can almost guarantee you'll end up in that same loop again.
I think that Krasi called it perspecticide, where during the relationship, the other person just writes off, kills your own perspective on things, and you need to go back and look at it again not through their lens, but through your own.
Yes.
So my question then is, if you're co-parenting now, you've separated, you're trying to navigate this new journey, you're trying to do the best for your kids and what's right for your kids. Can I just ask, before we move on to what boundaries, are there any warning signs that you're dealing with a narcissistic type co-parent in the way the children are being dealt with or the way the children are reacting? Is there anything people should be looking out for in their kiddies?
This would have to be one of the most horrible aspects of dealing with these personalities, because they will say or do whatever they want or need, because it's image. I can't be seen as a bad mother or a bad father. I can't be seen for who I truly am. It's a petition. You must lose and I must protect me and I must remain in control. So if you think you're going to go, guess what I'm going to do next? I'm going to make sure those children know exactly who you are, and I'm going to continue to control the situation through the beings that you care most about. And so more often than not, what you'll hear, because again, and as we've discussed at the beginning of this episode, unless they are diagnosed, they are not you cannot call them a narcissist, but they have the traits and behaviors. They will never put the children first. And you will hear it in the comments. whether they are speaking to your child with you, they're listening, whether it is the child coming back and saying, well, mum said or dad said, you will see it in the way that they treat the child and in the things that they do. Silly things. It's their grandmother's birthday and they're with you that weekend. Would I be able to pick them up for a couple of hours? No. That's not thinking about the child, not one little bit, right? Because that's got nothing. Of course, the child should be at their grandparents' birthday celebration. It goes without, unless they're unsafe or something like that. But otherwise, so you know that decisions are being made that are truly not putting your children first. And that's a sure sign that you are squarely in this territory. Horrible arena to be navigating, to say the very least.
I guess the number one big red flag is they're not putting the best interest of your kiddies first. I think and you can look at whatever storm that you are in right now, whether it's, like you said, trying to get your kids to go to your mother's birthday party, their grandmother's birthday party, or I don't know, little Johnny's got a soccer game coming up, but it's in somebody else's time and your ex is, I don't care, it's my time, my kids. There's always some sort of giant fight going on about something.
Over something that should not be giant, but then the double down is that they will then say to your child, you're missing Johnny's football thing because mum won't let you do, because your child will be like, but I really want to go, mum. And in your mind, you're like, what? On what? And I always say it's like parenting with an elephant on your back. It truly is, because how many times have everyone that's listening to this podcast wanted to turn around and go, I cannot believe they said that to you. It is not true. It is a lie. In fact, and you just can't, because it really is not fair.
And you'll see the kids' eyes glaze over. They really don't want to know, and it just makes you as bad as the other person in their eyes. I think we all get to be very good actresses in terms of trying not to display stuff or our face for the kids.
And it doesn't mean lying to them so that down as the person who's ruined everything, but it's also about not stooping to that other parent's level and doing the same. And you can absolutely say, oh, okay, there might be a miscommunication because I didn't say that. Let me deal with this, or whatever it might. You don't need to turn around and say, your mother or father are the biggest liars walking the planet and I've had enough of them. Don't do that.
Yeah.
No.
If you're listening to this, and you probably got an inkling that your ex might be narcissistic type if you're listening to this anyway, and there's always a fire, there's always a drama, there's always something. And I guess one of the things that we hear from people is, if anything out of the ordinary is going to happen, they immediately start to freak out because they go, oh, this is going to somehow be turned into a giant fight.
Yes.
And parents freak out because they already know that in a normal, perfect world, the parents would sort it out and it would be fine and they'd all do what's best for Johnny and Johnny would get along. But not in this situation. The narcissistic type is going to use it to their advantage in some way to cause troubles. And this is going to happen ongoing if you've got a child that's 4 until they're 18, etc. So what kind of boundaries, Mia, can people put up to navigate this horrible or roller coaster ride they go on with these types of people? So that, yes, if they've got a 2-year-old with this person, it's not going to be a nightmare until they're 18.
Yeah. I would say the big in navigating all of this is the hope that they might just do the right thing this time. The hope that they might just hear you. The hope that they might see this is actually fair, or that I've done it before for you. That hope is a wonderful thing in life. It is a killer in this arena and sounds completely counterintuitive. But one of the best things you can do to liberate yourself and have complete power is to accept and very quickly who you are dealing with. Because if I sit here sending something off to you, Laura, going, maybe this time she'll understand that I let her take the kids an extra hour last weekend, so she should let me. I'm going to drive myself round the bend with the fairness and the hoping and all those sorts of things, only for you to go back and go, I'm not doing that. Court orders don't permit it. Or to just ignore me. And then I'm all upset and I'm like, I knew it. Yeah, all those sorts of things. The most powerful thing, and I'll give you an example, recently a client realized that her ex was taking the children overseas, and when they got back, the normal schedule with men, they would still be with him. And she was like, I didn't realize, and now to try and agree, what do I do? And I've had many instances on this exact issue, right? And there are ways to negotiate all of this, but the concern here was they were already away and they'd already had the discussion, right? That this might not happen. Yes, they should come back and see they've had an extended amount of time without you, but let's just accept that if we are following the orders, because you cannot rush to the family court and say, oops, a daisies, this hasn't worked out the way I wanted. That won't happen. You'll get a hearing in 6-12 months. So let's accept that this is where it all lands. And then we're going to come up with our plan and how we're going to ask for it. And that involved, unfortunately, because you shouldn't have to, has this happened before? Is there anything going forward where this might happen to him and he'll want to do all those ways where you say, look, I just said when our next trip comes up, the same will happen for you. Because this is who you're dealing with. You're dealing with, you have to leverage things to get an outcome. But when we got her to a place of, okay, I didn't raise this at the time, they're already gone, and this might not just happen. It took all of the, oh my God, what's he going to say back? And he's the worst. I can't believe this is happening today. She was like, this is going to be really awful if he says no, but it's where it all, and then we started sending the emails with the plan. It took so much of the heat out of it.
Yeah.
So I know people hear that and probably get upset and think, but it's unfair and it's right. And again, I come back to, yep, but you are not negotiating with me. You're not co-parenting with me or with Laura. You are co-parenting with someone who does not think this way.
And I guess, Mum, for those who haven't got their court orders yet, that's a very good warning to say, if you've got one of those types, then make sure you've thought about every possible hole that you can plug so that you don't have to deal with that crap.
Yes, but Laura, the detailed orders that we make will never cover every single situation.
True.
And I often think even if you do very detailed orders, a person with those sort of tendencies will be a jerk the second that they can. You're probably better, in a way, not to try to capture everything. Have your basic orders, right, and work with those. And rather than set yourself up for disappointment every time, just expect that they'll be jerks about it. You can put that situation with the holidays in by all means, but we've got 12 agreements, Laura, haven't we? But a lot of these consent orders are drafted at court or at mediation.
In a panic.
In a rush and being pressured maybe. Yes, if that's a message to our listeners, don't be pushed into these. I always say, take some printed calendars for a couple of years ahead and look how that will work, your arrangement. And then if there's an anomaly, you can identify it and then address it in the orders. But yes, some people, it doesn't matter how many orders there are.
And you know what, Lynn, on that point, I've got the most recent example, but it is true that even very detailed, it's a real fine line between don't rush it. You cannot draft for every scenario. You just can't.
No.
So yes, you don't want orders that say to be agreed throughout it because you'll pull your hair out until that child turns maybe. But it was an example of how the ex-husband wanted school holidays to be divided.
Need to start doing your disclosure but have no idea where to start? Feeling overwhelmed about mediation coming up? Or just trying to deal with negotiating with a manipulative ex? Then you need to go to thedivorcecourse.com.au to go to the free resources section where you can get a mediation checklist, a disclosure checklist, a word salad, read a letter like a pro checklist, and also a before you go checklist. Get ahead of the game and be organised and ready, as this handy checklist, along with the accompanying episodes of the podcast, will be perfect for you. All you need to do is go to thedivorcecourse.com.au and go to the free resource section and download the free checklists today.
But it was an example of how the ex-husband wanted school holidays to be divided exactly, precisely to the minute 50-50, right? So what they did was set out two examples of where the number of days in the school holidays were even and where the number of the days in the school holidays were odd. With an example. So if the number even, you divide it by this and changeover happens mid that. And then in bracket, and it's important to me because I'm a lawyer and brackets mean something, an example. So say the school holidays are 14 days, 14 divided by 7 and set it all out. And because these were done in a match just before a final hearing date was going to be given, And the ex was like, oh, I don't want this. And he finally settled and agreed. It said, the example had that odd number of days. If the school holidays is 15 days, so 15 divided by 2 equals 8. That is a clear error.
It's a slip rule.
You don't,
It's not
It's obviously a mistake.
Right?
Yeah.
So you don't need a barrister. You don't need a judge. You don't need your mathematician. We all know 15 divided by 2 doesn't equal.
No, you're not going to say what
Yeah, he did.
Gonna say.
Yep. So he absolutely argued that there is no error in that example. And you just go back and go, wow.
I know lawyers aren't notorious for being mainly word people and not that good with maths, but even
That's it. That's basically saying when they argue that the sky is red when it's blue. That's a literal real life
And
example.
where you're like, there's actually no grey in this. There is no room for interpretation. It's just 15 does not, 502 does not equal 8.
Yeah. There was a case not so long ago, a couple of years now, where the fellow was to change the children over at Hungry Jack's in a certain town that changed over. Hungry Jack's closed down. The other person had to go to court to get time with the children because the law said Hungry Jack's. And the judgment says, but there was a McDonald's over the road. Why didn't you go to the McDonald's over the road?
No,
I know.
It's one of those things where you would have common sense. It doesn't mean that if Hungry Jack's closed down in that location, I lose all my custody.
Yeah. So these are the things. So these are the things that people are maybe already experiencing. But if they haven't got their orders yet, holy smokes, you really need to put your thinking caps on and, like we always say, sit down and brainstorm. What are the, because we've heard of, like you said, Mia, you can't put it all in. Changeover's meant to happen on Friday, but it was a pupil free day and it was just at the beginning of the Easter holiday. So they're going to be times in every kid's life, like when COVID happened. Most people's orders did not have COVID lockdowns put in. So, all the narcissistic type co-parents ran with that like anyone's business. So it's going to happen. And I guess the boundaries you're saying that they've got to put up. 1, if you haven't got them, get good orders and think about them. 2, be prepared that it's just going to happen. And even though you still ask, my question to you though, Mia, is I've seen people go through this. They get this thing. They're like, oh crap, I'm going to have to ask my ex to do something that they're obviously going to turn into a fight. Sometimes I see them debate whether they even bother asking or whether they just let it slide. And it frustrates me sometimes because I think, no, you should ask because that's what a good person should do. You should treat them like they are normal and let them be unnormal themselves. Or is it better to just let it go before you even start the drama?
Do you know what? You've hit a raw nerve because I saw recently a very high-profile divorce coach, I guess you'd say, look, don't even include in your parenting plan or orders the child's birthday or your birthday because that person's just going to make it difficult. So don't bother. And I was like, because there's so many people listening to this who might just go, oh, okay. So, the one exception is if they are going to gain something out of this or it suits them in some way, shape or form, much easier. But if there's none of that, we know they're going to make it difficult. We know that they're going to distract, and if you hadn't stepped over a rock 3 years ago, we wouldn't be where we are. And you're like, what? I'm asking about a holiday. What are we talking about? We know they're going to do that. They're probably going to denigrate you, attack you, all the things. So you know that's going to happen. There's a lot of power in accepting who you're dealing with and knowing how they will come. And it's powerful because it takes the sting out of it. So this is why, again, the personal healing work is so important. They know how to push your buttons because they installed those buttons. The more work you do to remove those buttons, there's nothing to push. And you receive the email and you're like, knew that was going to happen. But they know what they're poking at because they created those buttons to push.
Wow.
Do the work to remove the buttons. They don't exist anymore. Now, I see it a nerve because I saw that video and it really upset me because I feel that there's people out there now in this industry who don't really know what they're doing and they're leading people astray. Yes. But also, you have to know what matters to you. So, are you going to push a point about the child having 2 pairs of sports sneakers instead of 1? Probably not. It's not worth it. let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it important to you? And some people might say, I'm okay with not seeing my child or them not seeing me on my birthday and just they see me when they come, right? So it's not one size fits all. But some people that go, no, I absolutely want to see my child on their birthday and they will want to see me and vice versa. So I am standing up for this and I am pushing for this and that is okay. I know there's going to be backlash. I know I'm going to be called an awful parent or whatever it is. Take all the sting out of it because you know what's coming your way and stay focused on the point. And you know what? A lot of people forget in this scenario, it's not a criticism. I understand where they are. We're so focused on them and how they're going to react and how they're going to respond that we think us and our needs. And do you know what they hate? They hate the spotlight on them when it's negative. So if you are asking to see your child on their birthday because you don't have orders or your orders don't make provision for that, or you don't ask for it in the first place because you're worried about their reaction, if they say no or they start saying wild and wacky things to you, ignore the noise and go back with something along the lines of, sorry, can you just help me understand? They love that because it makes them sound very smart and makes you sound very silly. Are you saying that our children shouldn't see their parents on their birthdays? Is that what you're saying? I just want to be clear moving forward. Is that what you're saying? Oh my goodness, I cannot tell you how much they hate that because what they're actually doing is just trying to get into the room, to build up that bravado and facade and make them feel good about themselves and put it down. But if you keep going back to them, sorry, I just want to be clear. So saying that come December when it's your birthday, you won't, is that what you're saying? I just want to get it, but you watch them wriggle and squirm and get very uncomfortable. When you, and I'll repeat it until I'm blue in the face, when you accept who they are, when you do the work on yourself to get rid of the buttons that they love to push, and when you get very clear on what matters to you and what is important for your children, all that mud starts to just have no effect. It doesn't even stick, doesn't even land. They can't even throw it enough to hit you, right? And you're like, I saw all this coming. And when I really look at that response, it doesn't answer my question. It just throws mud. So I'm going to ignore that mud and I'm going to turn it back to the question, all right? But each scenario depends on what's happened in the past, what you know matters to them. Because do you know what? They might not even care if they see the kids on their birthday because they might be too busy courting the next partner or whatever it is. But they care about their image. So if you're saying, okay, so you don't want to see our children, you watch them go, oh no. Oh, okay, so we're agreed then, should. There's ways to close the gates on them, and it's not by defending yourself against all the mud.
Gosh, it's like chess. It's like chess, and it scares me. But I think everybody who's listening to this who has an ex that might have narcissistic type tendencies probably wants you sitting behind them before they write anything.
So what's missing from most of those transactions that we're talking about is a child focus from the other parent, unless they parrot it off like a formula just because they know the law requires it. So when you're choosing the battles, it may not be that you feel you've got the courage for it or you're exhausted, but it may be the right thing to do for the children and to go into bat for the kids. And I think some of our listeners, they would love to be able to just walk away in dignity, but the kids are still kids and they have their needs and they can't go up against a narcissist. They haven't got a chance.
Here's the good old oxygen mask on the plane. I always used to think I would never look after myself before my children. And then you come to realize the more work you do on yourself and your healing, because someone has literally sucked your soul out and convinced you that you are worth nothing. You can't just come around from that. You can't walk out of that relationship and go, I'm now good for the next person. There's work to be done. The more you do the work on yourself, the better placed you are to support your children. And it is 100% true. But so many people situations go, oh no, don't worry about me. It'll look kids. If you're unconscious because you didn't put your oxygen mask on, you can't help your kid at all. If you're terrified to stand up for yourself, how are you going to stand up for them? It's actually really important.
Mm.
Now, I'm going to touch on a very raw topic that we've started to notice a theme in our member Q&As. It's teenage kids starting to show signs of their ex's behaviours, or their ex is encouraging bad behaviour at the other parent's house, holes in walls, or giving the kids like credit cards so they can go do whatever they want, and it undermines the parenting at the other person's house. And these poor parents are trying to navigate this co-parenting with teenagers. Is there any strategies for parents listening today that have older kids on how to deal with that kind of trouble?
It's so tricky, isn't it? Because you lose, if it's a 4-year-old, you can very easily leave them at home and things like that. But when it's a 50-year-old saying, I need a credit card for when I'm out, and you're like, or whatever it might be, it's a lot harder. And they obviously can talk back, and they've got all the puberty hormones and all the delightful things happening all at once. What is very tricky is when you start to see or hear behaviours or things being said that remind you of your ex. You've got to be so careful that you are not projecting onto your teenager that they are. And that is so easy to say when you see it in your child and everything, and you go, yeah, over my dead body, will you be speaking like this and doing these things? Oh gosh, it's hard to project, because most of us spend our time making sure that doesn't come to be. And I step back and go, okay, so from the psychological perspective and all the research out there, they say that every child needs one emotionally secure, supportive attachment. So you can have that parent over there, but they need that one consistent parent. That's really important. And there's no fooling anyone. That parent carries the load. You are really carrying a load. But when they get older and they can walk out the door, or they can say things and do things that a younger child can't do, what do you? I sit back and go, if you can get that support, that, that psychological support or whatever it might be for the child, that would be great. If they're willing to do it, you can't drag them along kicking and screaming to help them out. But it's going to be home dependent. But you still have to be very clear on your boundaries and what applies at your home. And you are perfectly entitled to say, I understand that mum or dad's, that you are allowed to swear, or you're allowed to stay out till midnight, or whatever it is. But in my home, and I know it's really hard having different sets of roles, appreciate that. I really feel for you in that regard. But in my home, speaking like that is unacceptable, and I won't tolerate it. You cannot speak to me like that, or I will not be spoken to like that. So make it your as opposed to you. I will not be spoken to. At home, we have a curfew. So you must be home by 10 p.m. or what it is. And really empathize, because who wants two sets of rules? No one does. You know that you can't go to that person and say, hey, midnight's a bit late for a 14-year-old on a school night. Can we agree? Not going to happen. Unless you've got some leverage somehow where you can negotiate it. Otherwise, not going to happen. So, you know what? I know it's really tricky navigating two sets of rules. And I know that mine probably seem a bit harsh or boring or painful. But you know what? I'm your mum. And it's my job to make sure that you grow up to be an empathetic, kind, wonderful human who respects others, respects other people's injuries, all those sorts of things. And I'm doing it the way I know best. So in my home, you've got to be home at 10 p.m. and there's consequences. It's not your dad just doesn't care, being a Disneyland dad, and you've got to go to school the next morning. So going to bed at midnight is in no one's interest. I can't believe he'd let you do that. None of that.
Can't do that. No. Do you know why I think a lot of people see their ex in the teenage children? Is because your ex's behaviour is very much like a teenager's behaviour. So we need or a toddler.
Yes.
So you need to be clear that a certain amount of the sass that you're getting, you were going to get that anyway. Only some of it is coming as a result of the other parent. And so you still try to deal holistically. But yes, if you remember that, then it'll be easier, I think, to not blame your ex for everything.
Yes.
You know what I mean? These kids have necessary rebellious growth.
You're spot on. And it's so easy to see it or hear it and go, oh, No. Kids at the end of the day, I've been in scenario the client's ex will say to the child, the ex, you can't speak to your mum, dad, or you've got to say hello to your mum or vice versa. But the child is seeing the ex ignore the mother. Or the child is seeing the ex speak terribly to the mother, but the ex will be like, you've got to respect your mum or you've got to respect your dad. And it's like, children, you can speak to them until you're blue in the face about how to behave, but they are watching you and they will role model you more often than not. So what's the point in saying, act with respect, show some gratitude, don't be rude, but you yourself are role modeling polar opposite, right? And you really are the person carrying the load here. You've got kids. I sometimes think, look at us as adults. And it takes getting older and life and unfortunately having negative experiences to go, oh, hold on a minute. I got my parent on. I understood their divorce incorrectly. Actually, the person who I thought was cruising wonderful was actually torturing my father, or by friendships we see it in the workplace. It takes time and experience. So how can we expect an 8-year-old, a 15-year-old to go, my dad is a controlling nightmare? These things take so much. We just have to carry that load and role model really positive behaviors and the way we respond. And in all things going well, the child will hope.
Gosh, I know that the people listening to this are probably panicking because a lot of them probably only have 5-year-olds or 2-year-olds. It doesn't always end that way. It's just we've heard a few stories recently where I was like, yikes.
Yeah. And let's get some comfort here. Although the law says until 18, in reality, once kids have got their credit card, they can catch the bus or catch the train. But one judge called it, once they can vote with their feet, then the court's not going to enforce an order and shove it down their throats because they can leave. So if you've got a 4-year-old, darling, it's only another 10 years. It's not another 14 years.
Yes.
And even narcissists get sick of it. I think it does settle down in time.
Do they?
They have been known to refer to them as cockroaches sometimes. Nothing kills them. Nothing stops them. Really not a great way to put it. But it really does depend on what else is happening in their life. If they rush off and marry and have more kids and they're distracted over here or their career or whatever it might be, sometimes they'll be distracted by other things. But and people listening will be like, Mia, enough with this. But it really is true, both on when are they going to leave me alone? And I'm so worried because I've got a 4-year-old and what if they grow up thinking I'm the nightmare and my ex is the wonderful person? The more work you do on yourself, you let go of wanting any sort of revenge on them or for the world to see who they are, the more work you do to not react to them and to be like, that's them. I'm in my lane over here. The lawyer in me goes, don't say guarantee, Mia. I can almost guarantee that you will show your children by your own behaviors, doesn't matter what comes out of your mouth almost, a positive role model and influence, a solid person. And they're going to be like, my mum's really got together here. My mum's not descending into, your dad's a nightmare too. My mum's not doing any of that because kids don't want to hear it. That is the reality. They don't want to hear it. So the more work you do on you, the narcissist, I'd love to say, will get bored of you. They can't do the horrible emails, the constant coming out. It does lessen and it does fall away because they're not getting anything from you. When you say, okay, hold on, you're a rubbish mum. You're like, what? They're not getting from you what they really need. So they do start looking elsewhere. But always remember in the back of your head, they'll find something.
Eventually.
2 years later, they'll come at you and you're like, I didn't see that one coming. But it does taper off. But the more you are reacting and in it, the more they're like, whoa.
That's why I'm so glad the court has started to recognise these behaviours and they're looking at harmful proceedings with people multiple filing. Because I think once the court is over and you can adapt that mindset, like you said, where they're not impacting on you anymore, I think it's probably more about your reaction than them.
Yes.
But how sad to be a person who's sitting there for years plotting against another person. Where's your life gone?
Finding all the ways that you're that day or upset them that day. The ultimate goal for everyone in this space is to be free of this and to get on with your life. And I promise you cannot do that while your focus is on them. And this is not a criticism, because I know when you're in the thick of it, you're like, but it's everything. But when your focus is on them, people seeing some form of retribution or justice or whatever it might, you can't move forward in your life. You're always over here. And the irony of taking your focus off them is everything else starts to get better. Everything else. Imagine being on a date and being like, so my ex, this is what he does. He's a nightmare. He's sorry, he's texting me again. He's always making things talk. So it's really important work to do.
Look, I think, Mia, I love having you on because it's like you're a motivational speaker for people with narcissistic exes. But it feels like you've given energy and hope to people, even though when you say don't have hope, yes. How can people work with you?
Yes, so it's changing a bit at the minute too. So I'm still doing my one-on-ones with so you can always jump online or on Instagram and book in. And so we will work through whether it's preparing for mediation, preparing for court, preparing for family. How am I going to get an outcome in my mediation? Or I'm in a hole. They will not agree the high school. Or I can't figure out school holidays, help, those sorts of things. I'm also now offering for people, because people don't always need to sit down and talk through things. Sometimes it's just help me with these correspondence. So now I've got a program with clients or an offering with clients where each month they get X number of email responses from me and they can cancel it whenever they want. So people who are in the thick of emails and communications and they're like, I don't need to talk to you necessarily for an hour, but I do need your help getting an outcome. So that's been really beneficial for clients. And now I'm actually helping with training lawyers, family lawyers themselves, because as you're working with the clients, you realize lawyers aren't trained in this. We all go to law school, really important, and we learn on the job. But if you overlook the personality as a lawyer, your legal strategy doesn't matter. You could have a wonderful legal strategy. It's out the window. With lawyers too, to say, let's bridge that gap so you can better support the client. You can even work better because, let's face it, the narcissist also deserves representation. I should say it with a better tone, but they do. So if your client is the narcissist, and how to help your client who's on the receiving end, instead of just saying, that's not relevant, move on. Someone who's for 20 years been told everything that comes out of their mouth is a waste of air. And those really simple words can throw them into a spin, and how to actually navigate matters where you are taking control and you get who's in front of you, instead of going, I don't know, this is really hard. We're going to go back court. I'm trying the same things over.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And when you say motivational speaker, I'm like, my goal is to help every single person in this, because I know there's a way. And I know when you feel like you're stuck, I'm very passionate about it.
Oh, if you're educating lawyers, and that's going to hopefully help a lot of people who listen to hear that, because so many email us and say, my lawyer doesn't get my ex. My lawyer just doesn't get it.
My lawyer doesn't get it. It's a big one.
I'm seeing signs, though, that the judges in the court are getting it.
It's great.
I really am. It's great.
That's great. All right. We would love to have you on again another time, Mia. And we'd love to have you on the Q&A with our members as well in the future. Yes. So stay tuned for that. Any members, you get to ask Mia some questions and she can maybe help workshop some issues that everyone in the chat's dealing with. So we would love to have you on again. I'll put your details in the show notes. Thank you so much, Mum, and thank you so much, Mia, again for coming. And good luck, everyone.
Mia. Thank you, Laura. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
If you found this podcast helpful, we'd love it if you could rate, review, and subscribe. By doing so, you are spreading the word to help someone else just like you. Lynn would like to remind you that this podcast is general advice only, and you should always get legal advice in relation to your particular situation. And remember that the Australian laws may have changed since recording.